The night was sharp, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones when you push your body too far. My sneakers pounded the pavement in sync with Jay's, our breaths forming fleeting clouds under the flickering streetlights of my suburban enclave. I've never been one for fitness fads. Running was just something to keep me from falling apart, but Jay? He was a machine, all lean muscle and relentless drive, always nudging me to match his stride. That night, we'd grown restless with our usual loop, so we sketched out a new one, hungry for a challenge. From the main road, we'd weave through side streets, cut across a wooded path, and hit the dirt trail that stretched past the farms into a void of shadows. It felt like a plan we could trust. We set off strong, our laughter echoing through the quiet neighborhood, trading stories about school crushes and locker room rivalries. The houses stood like sentinels, their windows glowing with the soft warmth of families tucked inside. My neighborhood was the kind of place where people waved, where danger felt like a story from somewhere else, or so I'd convinced myself. But as we veered onto the wooded path, the streetlights faded, and the world grew close, the trees pressing in like they were listening. That's when I caught it, a faint crunch behind us, sharp and deliberate, like boots grinding gravel into dust. I shot a glance at Jay, his face half lit by moonlight, still chuckling over some dumb joke. "You hear that?" I asked, my voice low, barely cutting through the rustle of leaves. He shrugged, unbothered. "Probably another runner, man. Chill." The path was well-trodden, dog walkers, joggers, kids on bikes used it all the time. But my stomach nodded, a primal warning I couldn't shake. I quickened my pace, and Jay matched me, our rhythm tightening as the footsteps followed, mirroring us through the dark. They weren't random. When we pushed harder, the crunching sped up, relentless. When we eased into a jog to catch our breath, it slowed, staying just out of sight. My heart was a drumbeat in my throat, but I bit down on the fear, telling myself it was nothing, a neighbor, a coincidence. We burst onto the side road, the streetlights flooding the world with artificial safety. I spun around, chest heaving, scanning for a figure, a face, anything. The path was empty, the night swallowing any trace of our pursuer. Just pavement and the whisper of wind through the pines. Jay snorted, clapping my shoulder. "You're jumping at shadows, dude. Let's go." I wanted to laugh with him, to drown the unease in his confidence. We pressed on, the main road guiding us toward the dirt path that led to the farms. No lights here, only moonlight carving jagged patterns across the ground, the trees looming like silent judges. The air tasted of earth and decay, and every step felt heavier, like the night was pressing down on us. We ran a mile, maybe two, before exhaustion tugged at my legs. "Let's head back," I said, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. That's when I saw it, a flicker in the trees, a shape too solid to be a trick of the light. It darted out of sight so fast I questioned my sanity. "Jay," I hissed, grabbing his arm, "there's something out there." He squinted into the dark, his smirk fading. "You're wiped out, man." "It's nothing." But his voice cracked, betraying a flicker of doubt. We turned back, the path stretching ahead like a tunnel with no end. The air grew thick, oppressive, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting. A rustle, sharp, too close, erupted from the trees. We froze, our shadows merging on the dirt. There, dead center in the path, stood a figure. Hood up, face obscured, clad in a black hoodie so tattered it seemed to fray into the night itself, paired with khakis ripped and stained, like they'd been clawed from a grave. He faced away, still as death, a silhouette carved from the void. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out the world. Jay, braver or dumber, took a step forward. "Hey," he shouted, voice cracking. "What the hell are you doing?" The figure didn't flinch. Then, slowly, it laughed, a low, guttural sound, like nails scraping bone, twisting my nerves into knots. My skin crawled as it turned, the moonlight catching its face. Pale as ash, almost glowing, with eyes like black pits that swallowed the light. The laugh cut off, abrupt, and it stared, unblinking, its gaze pinning us like insects on a board. Time stretched, seconds bleeding into eternity, my body screaming to move while my feet stayed rooted. I don't know who broke first, but we ran, legs pumping, lungs burning, the world a blur of shadows and fear. That laugh chased us, weaving through the trees, fainter but unyielding, a predator's taunt. 2 miles later, we stumbled into my driveway, my stomach lurching as I retched onto the grass. We scrambled inside, locking every door, slamming every blind, our breaths ragged as we sank to the floor. Dawn felt a lifetime away. We swore off that path, swore off the dark. But some nights, when the wind howls just right, I hear that cackle, and I wonder, what was it waiting for? What if we'd stayed? Running was my sanctuary, the one place I could outrun my doubts. As a high school junior, I wasn't the fastest on the cross-country team, but I had endurance, losing myself in the steady cadence of my feet against the earth. My neighborhood was a quilt of sleepy streets, abandoned barns, and fields that bled into a forest preserve, a place that felt ancient, its shadows whispering secrets no one dared to hear. When a neighbor offered $10 a run to wear out her hyperactive puppy, Izzy, I didn't hesitate. Money for doing what I loved? It was a no-brainer. Most evenings, it was just me and Izzy, her leash snapping tight as we wove through the rural sprawl, past crumbling fences and overgrown lots. I'd hum to myself, the rhythm of my steps drowning out the world, school stress, family fights, all of it fading into the background. But one night, as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of ember and ash, the air turned wrong. It was too heavy, too still, like the world had forgotten to breathe. The birds had gone silent, leaving only Izzy's panting and the dull thud of my sneakers on cracked pavement. We reached a stretch of road hemmed in by woods so thick they seemed to lean inward, their branches clawing at the fading light. Izzy froze, her ears pricking up, a low growl vibrating in her chest. My heart gave a sharp thud. I followed her stare into the trees, expecting a deer, maybe a fox. Nothing, just the sway of branches in a breeze I couldn't feel. Then, between two gnarled trunks, a face emerged, pale and sharp under the brim of a low hat. A man, maybe in his 30s, gloved hands braced against the bark, his eyes locked on me with a hunger that made my blood run cold. I forced a nod, my throat tight, pretending I wasn't shaken. Just a hiker, I muttered to myself, tugging Izzy's leash. She resisted, her growl deepening, but I pulled her forward, my steps quickening. The woods felt alive now, every rustle a threat, every shadow a hiding place. I told myself I was overreacting, people wandered these trails all the time. But the memory of those eyes, unblinking, predatory, clung to me like damp cloth. I jogged on, faster, the leash cutting into my palm. Izzy stopped again, her body taut as a bowstring, tail tucked low. My stomach plummeted. I glanced back. He was closer, standing at the road's edge, his head tilted like he was memorizing me. No sound, no crunch of leaves, no snap of twigs. Just there, a phantom born from the twilight. My pulse hammered, a frantic rhythm urging me to run, but I fought it, clinging to logic. Maybe he was lost, confused. I pushed forward, my strides uneven, stealing glances over my shoulder. For a moment, the woods seemed empty again, and I dared to hope he was gone. Then I saw him, sprinting toward me, a butcher cleaver flashing in his hand, its blade catching the last glimmers of sunset like a cruel promise. Terror slammed into me, raw and electric, drowning out thought. I ran, harder than I'd ever run in any race, Izzy scrambling at my side, her leash a lifeline between us. My lungs screamed, my vision tunneled, the world narrowing to the road ahead. I didn't dare look back, but I felt him, his presence a weight pressing against my spine. When I finally risked a glance, his face was a mask of fury, mouth twisted in a silent snarl, eyes wild with something beyond rage. The cleaver gleamed, hungry, and the worst part? No sound of breath, no gasp of exertion, just his boots hammering the earth, relentless, unnatural. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of stories, missing hikers, whispers of things in the woods, but fear drowned them out. I veered into a neighborhood, cutting through yards, leaping fences, ducking behind sheds. My legs burned, my chest ached, but I pushed until I collapsed behind a wooden fence, gasping, Izzy trembling against me. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. I held my breath, straining for any sound. Then, at the top of a hill, he stood, cleaver dangling loosely, his gaze fixed on me. No chase, no fury, just that empty stare, like he'd weighed my life and found it lacking. Headlights pierced the dusk, a car rumbling down the street. He turned, melting into the woods without a sound, as if he'd never been there at all. I didn't tell the woman who owned Izzy, didn't tell my parents. Admitting it would have meant losing my runs, my freedom, and I wasn't ready to surrender that. But I never took Izzy down that road again, sticking to bright streets and crowded paths. Even now, in the dead of night, when the house is too quiet, I see those eyes, cold, unhuman, and I wonder what he wanted, what he was. The forest keeps its secrets, and I'm not brave enough to ask. Suburbia can choke you, its neat rows of lawns and picket fences hiding a loneliness that creeps into your bones. My neighborhood was an island in a sea of fields, country roads twisting into the distance, leading nowhere but back to themselves. As a kid, I always felt watched, like the vastness around us held eyes that never blinked. I was 9 the first time I sensed it, walking our dogs with my little brother, their leashes tangled as we wandered toward the main road. A white SUV sat idling at the corner, its engine humming softly. A man leaned out, blonde curls glinting under the sun, his voice syrupy as he waved us over. "Hey, kids, come here a sec." My skin prickled, some deep instinct screaming run. I grabbed my brother's arm, dragging him back toward home, his protests drowned by the thud of my pulse. The man's smile faltered, and as we fled, I heard the SUV's tires crunch, pulling away. I told Mom, breathless, but she sighed, said he was probably lost, asking for directions. I wanted to believe her, but those curls burned into my memory, a warning I couldn't shake. Years later, Halloween 2014 painted the streets with costumes and laughter, but a shadow lingered. A black sedan prowled our neighborhood, its headlights dim as it trailed groups of trick-or-treaters. A dad, fed up, marched over to confront the driver. The car surged forward, tires screeching, aiming for him before vanishing into the night. No plates, no trace. The adults whispered for weeks, their fear sharp and electric, but time dulled it, burying the incident like a bad dream. Still, I walked faster at night, scanning for headlights that lingered too long. Summer 2018 brought another brush with the unknown. I was pet-sitting for neighbors, their house a trek through dense woods or a long loop along the main road. I'd go 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, letting their dog out, feeding him, soaking in the quiet. One night, I lost track of time, caught up in a game with friends, and realized too late it was past 10. I hurried over, the dark pressing in, my flashlight cutting a thin beam through the black. The dog was fine, bounding out to do his business, but as I locked up, I glanced out the window. A black sedan sat by the driveway, its engine off, no one inside. My breath caught. I was sure it hadn't been there when I arrived. I stood frozen, debating, call someone? Wait it out? The house felt exposed, its windows too wide, the night too vast. I chose the woods, slipping out the back, branches snagging my clothes as I pushed through the underbrush. My heart pounded, every snap of a twig a threat, but I made it home, the sedan never reappearing. For the rest of the job, I stuck to the woods, avoiding the road, its memory a weight I carried silently. Fast forward to 2020, quarantine locking me in this nowhere town. Track was my outlet, and with practice cancelled, I ran daily, the open roads my only escape. The field stretched endless under wide skies, the occasional car a fleeting interruption. Then I noticed it, a white SUV, creeping along the opposite side, matching my pace with eerie precision. I brushed it off, coincidence, nothing more. But the next day, it was back, pulling out from a driveway as I passed, its tinted windows hiding whoever sat inside. Day after day, it shadowed me, always there, never close enough to challenge, never far enough to forget. I tested it, shifting my runs to later hours, taking winding paths through side streets. It adapted, appearing like a ghost, its presence a taunt. My gut screamed to tell Mom, but I held back. She'd banned me from running, and I couldn't lose that freedom. I started carrying a pocket knife, its weight a small comfort against the unknown. On day 11, I turned down a cul-de-sac, expecting the SUV to drift away as usual. Instead, a black sedan waited at the end, parked under a streetlight, its stillness unnatural. My eyes caught movement beneath it, a figure, curled tight, barely visible, like a predator coiled to strike. My blood turned to ice. I glanced back, the SUV was there, blocking the street's mouth, its engine idling low. Panic surged, a wild, clawing thing. I chose the SUV, the devil I knew, and sprinted toward it, legs burning, breath ragged. As I neared, a man leapt out, tall, blonde curls catching the sunlight, his face twisted with intent. My heart stopped. It was him, the man from a decade ago, older but unmistakable. He lunged, shouting for me to stop, his voice a mix of command and desperation. I was faster, months of training and raw fear propelling me past him. I dodged, flipping him off with a defiance I barely felt, and tore down the road, his yells fading into the wind. I didn't stop until I reached home, collapsing against the door, my hands shaking as I fumbled the lock. I told Mom everything, the words spilling out in a rush. She called the cops, but without plates, without proof, they could only promise to watch. I knew they wouldn't find him. That man, that SUV, that sedan, they'd been hunting me for years, circling like vultures, waiting for a moment of weakness. I don't run alone anymore, sticking to crowded parks, bright daylight. But I scan the horizon, always, for a flash of blonde curls, for the glint of a sedan in the dusk. Out here, the fields are wide, but the shadows stretch wider, and they're never empty.